Hey, Nikki, we're on. There's no passcode. Okay. Oh, shit. It's 536717. Yes, we heard.
I'm gonna go jump on this myself, but can I just ask you a quick question?
Let me get the meeting.
Yeah, get that meeting started. I just had some fun. Never mind.
Hold on. Okay, cool. It's a couple people made it in. Let's go. Passcode is 537. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, make sure people can get in. Hi, Jeanette. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, 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 good. All right. We'll give it a few more minutes, let a couple more people get in here. There was a passcode for this one, which is a little odd. Usually there's not.
Right? You look so fancy. Yeah, buddy. Oh.
Okay, well. Yeah, one person just emailed me about the passcode, Nikki. I'm so sorry. I don't know what the heck happened. Oh, look, now we have 8 people waiting in the waiting room. There you go. There you go. I don't know why I set it up that way. That's so weird. But there you go. Well, hi, people.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Uh-huh.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Hold on, I'm gonna watch the chat room. Okay.
There you go.
We'll just give it a minute or so more, guys, just because we had a passcode requirement. So I want to make sure everybody has a chance to get in. Okay. Yeah, a couple more coming in. How's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Good.
Doing
Doing fabulous.
Fabulous is good. Okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of start my my file. I want to check on my templates for a second really quickly. 14720. Okay.
Yeah, and it looks like
So
most
I hit,
new agents are on here, which is what I was concerned about. So that's good.
okay. So I hit new in transactions. I hit new right here. And purchase is the money. And I always name my purchases the buyer's name because, as you all know, we're all looking at lots of properties. And sorry, got a little loud there for a second. We're making lots of offers. So the buyer's name isn't going to change, but the property address will. So we're just going to call this Brianna Adams. We're looking for a residential. And then I want to do the template. Right there. Save.
Sorry, do you see two links in the email that you received?
The link that in the email that we received?
I don't know if that was a sidebar conversation, Nikki, so maybe just move on.
Oh.
Terry, did you need
Oh,
something?
okay.
I think it was a sidebar conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got sidetracked by Colby.
Just so you guys know, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you for now. And then if you do have a question throughout the process, obviously this is RPA class, there's gonna be lots of questions. So feel free to just unmute yourself and chime in or use the chat. And I'm gonna do my best to monitor while Nikki is talking mostly, and I'll be chiming in as well.
Okay.
All right, guys,
So,
let's go ahead and take it from there, Miss Nikki.
okay, so now I'm in my transaction. The summary page, I don't often fill out the summary page. I just go straight to documents right here. And I fill out my cover sheet. Most important thing to have in here is your client's emails and your information. All right, so I'm on this. I opened the cover sheet. I'm going to hit MLS Connect up here in this corner. And the property we're going to make an offer on, I'm going to type in the MLS number and I hit find. And it's 4300 Broadway. And I'm going to import all that information. And I want it to write over anything I've already put in.
Hey, Nikki, we have some new agents on the call, do you mind just kind of going over where you started, like how you got here, like maybe just state with car.org and all that stuff?
Like start from the very get-go?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, I mean, say what you did, but yeah. That'd be good.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't
Okay,
even
so
know.
I get in. I get into the MLS. I go straight through car.org. And let me see. So you log in, and then this is your landing page. Great tools on this page. I'm not going to go into it right now, but there's learning and thriving. There's industry classes. What we want is this transaction page, and you go to zip form edition. And that will take you to your dashboard, which is going to look like this. Okay, this is all the recent things I've done in my dashboard. These are the signature packets I have. This is my transaction types, listings. I don't spend too much time right here in the dashboard. I just always jump straight into transactions. If you look at the top of my screen right now, dashboard is green. If I hit transactions, that's going to become green right there. In my later classes on templates, we'll work on templates and that will be green. But right now we're going to do a transaction. I'm going to hit new. And then the dollar is always the money. So this is purchases. And this is listings, lease. A lease listing, I don't even use QuickSign. But I would hit new, purchase. And then, as I said, I always use the buyer's name on purchases because that's going to stay the same, but the addresses may change. I'd hit residential. When we do your templates in the template class, we'll apply an automatic template. I don't have an automatic template because I have lots of different kinds of templates. I like to make mine more specific. So it would just down here say purchase template and you'd hit save. Okay. Once you save, it'll open up into this summary page, which would be blank. I always flip right to documents, put all my buyer's information in the cover page, click this box. That makes a little X show up where they're going to sign an initial. And then my information is in here. I got all this information by hitting MLS Connect. It's up at the top, it says eSign MLS Connect. Even if I've already got an address like this, for the next property we make an offer on, I can do the MLS Connect and it will just delete everything else and put the new address in. That's how I write offers. When I'm writing multiple offers, I just keep using the MLS Connect. So you type in the MLS information. I'll do it again. I'll add the photo. You click find. And you just confirm that that's the one you're making the offer on. And you hit import. It's going to ask you, do you want to replace existing data? And you want to say yes. And then okay. And then it pulls all of that property address information directly into your cover sheet. Anything in your cover sheet is going to auto-populate onto all your other forms. So MLS Connect is a huge friend. You don't have to look for the APN number. You don't have to look for the zip code or when it was built. And then it also pulls the other agent's information, their license number for the broker's office and for the agent, which is really, really nice, especially since this information, you'll find out in a few minutes, needs to be on the first page of the contract. Okay, so that's the first few steps that I do. And then I hit back. And these are all the forms that I already have in my template. Okay, we're going to do the purchase contract. The first page of the purchase contract, this is what, when you sign this, you represent your client. You cannot sign any contract, I'll get you in a second, Kobe, without signing this first. So the buyer signs it and you sign it. This is your buyer's agency. If you're going to do a buyer's representation agreement before you write a purchase contract, you also have to sign the buyer agency first. If you don't have this, you don't really legally represent your client, okay? That's what this agency talks about. It does do a little bit about seller's agent and then buyer's agent and your responsibilities, diligent exercise of reasonable skill and care and performance of the agent's duties, a duty of honest and fair dealing and good faith, a duty to disclose all facts known to the agent materially affecting the value or desirability of the property that are not known to or within the diligent attention and observation of the parties. An agent is not obligated to reveal to either party any confidential information obtained from the other party that does not involve the affirmative duties set forth. So this explains all the agent's duties, the seller's and the buyer's responsibilities, but it is also your legal representation of a buyer. This is why at open houses, an agent will say to buyers that come in, are you represented by an agent? Have you signed an agency? If they've signed an agency, then you really don't talk to them about representation. Okay, any questions? Unmute yourself, Colby.
Yeah,
There you go.
okay. Nikki, my question was before you got to this page, like if I'm gonna write an offer for a condominium, would it still be that residential or is it or is it different?
It would still be residential.
Okay, thank you.
Residential, this covers 1 through 4 units and it covers condos. It doesn't cover mobile homes. There's a different mobile home purchase agreement or probate, but it covers everything else.
Thank you.
Okay, the next form that comes in the purchase contract package. What is the second page with the small words? This is legal boilerplate, Christy. Whoa, that was crazy. It talks about the civil code as regards to real estate agents and property. It talks about the confirmation of the agency that's in the first page of the purchase contract. It's basically what the law says that we have to do with our clients. You can read it all, but basically it's what civil code, the state of California, county, city codes say that we have to abide by as realtors.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was a definition page. I was just curious when people would ask me. I used to just jokingly say, if you want to fall asleep, read this page, but I kind of wanted to know what it actually was. Thank you so much.
Yeah. It is basically the page you want to fall asleep to, but it's the civil code. The definition page, though, just so everybody knows, is all the way at the back of the purchase agreement. I need to switch back to the purchase agreement. And we'll go over that later in this. Okay. Fair housing and discrimination advisory. So I could read you this whole entire form. It's 2 pages long, but basically it means that every buyer can see every house, every condo, anything that they want to purchase, no matter what. We can't try to steer them towards, if they're first-time buyers and you know the kind of income they have, if they want to see $1 million property, well, you show them $1 million property, because we can't discriminate on them based on any of these things that are in the chart, or you just can't steer them towards something like that. You can say, we probably won't be approved for this, but you can't say you can't see it. You can't say a certain race, sex, divorced, married, thruples, whatever you want to call them, citizenships, can't live somewhere. You can't base it on their ancestry, which, it's all the same thing. You just need to show people any property, and you need to be aware that we can't discriminate. And the reason they add new forms is because there have been lawsuits. So this form is new as of 10/20, so October of 2020. So there were enough lawsuits and changes in the laws that they decided to add this as a permanent form. Okay.
And this, just to add something real quick too, like this also goes like, don't engage in certain conversations with your clients. A lot of people like to say, well, I want to be in a nice area. What does nice area mean? Right? Or I don't want to be If they use a word like seedy, like I don't want to be in a seedy area. You know, this form is really trying to enforce not engaging in those types of conversations. I'll be honest with you guys, I've had some very racist clients before, like that freaked me out with what they told me, and I just had to not engage, right? And that's really hard to do sometimes when you're acting as somebody's, fiduciary, but you cannot engage in those types of conversations. Just wanted to add that.
Very good. I had a conversation, I don't know if you guys know Huntington, but with a buyer, and they were like, well, I just don't want to live in the Slater slums. Not supposed to say that anymore. Okay. Possible representation of more than one buyer or seller disclosure. So this disclosure, even though it is only a one-page disclosure, it kind of covers a lot of things. Possible representation of more than one buyer. This could mean that you are representing buyers that are looking at properties and competing against each other for the same properties. Like they're in the same financial bracket and they're looking in the same neighborhoods. It could mean that you are representing the seller and the buyer in a transaction. It could mean that one of the other agents, so this would be a dual representation right now because Michael Rowland and I are both part of Coldwell Banker Coastal Alliance. It could also mean in the listing agreement that you are representing or you have more than one listing in the same neighborhood. And those properties are going to compete for the same buyers. So it could mean multiple buyers, multiple sellers, dual agency, which would be when you represent both buyer and seller, or when somebody else from our brokerage and you represent the same buyer, the buyer and the seller. Buyer is advised that seller or listing agent may disclose the existence, terms, or conditions of buyer's offer. So that used to not be okay, but it is now okay to disclose the prices of offers you receive, unless all parties have signed a written confidentiality agreement, which is a CAR form, just so you know. Whether any such information is actually disclosed depends on many factors, such as current market conditions, the prevailing practice in the real estate community, and the listing agent's marketing strategy and the instructions of the seller. Buyer and seller understand that the broker may represent more than one buyer or more than one seller, or even both buyer and seller on the same transaction, and consents to such relationships. Okay, any questions on that form? Okay, good. Wire fraud and electronic funds transfer advisory. Long story short, if your buyers are going to wire any funds, they need to make sure that they call the institution directly and verify the wiring instructions. Okay. Side note, Coldwell Banker Coastal Alliance does not want any of you to ever forward wiring instructions to your client. You tell the escrow company that your brokerage wants the escrow to send their wiring instructions directly to your client. And then you want to call your client and say, hey, this is Linda Watson's phone number. Call her and verify the wiring instructions once you receive them. Because unfortunately, wire fraud is a real issue. And about the only way to make sure that your clients are safe is to verify and to also make sure that you give them the phone number or email of the listing agent, not the listing agent, sorry, escrow.
So guys, just to add to that further, like usually the wiring instructions will come to you like right away when escrow is opened, and they will usually escrow will send them to you as the agent. All you do is respond to that email saying, hey, can you please send this directly to my buyer? Here's their email address and contact information. And then you can leave it at that. That's how you'd handle that.
Okay. And the majority of them don't do that, but there are still some out there that will send them to you. Okay, so those are the first, what, 4 or 5 pages of legal stuff. And we finally get to the purchase contract. Okay, so I use the MLS Connect and I put my buyer's name in the cover sheet. So it has already populated that information into the first page of my purchase contract. Date prepared. This is the date that you're actually physically writing the offer. So today would be 2/4. This date right here follows the contract through escrow. Okay, so if I was to go into escrow on this today, and we get to an addendum, date prepared is the 2/4 because it's an addendum to the contract. We get to the contingency removals. It's a contingency removal that goes with the purchase contract dated 2/4. Those dated at the top, it's on the request for repairs as well. It's always the date that the contract is written, not the date it was signed. And let me go back. Okay, the very first after the city, county, zip code, and assessor's parcel number is the purchase price. Let's see, on this, the listing is for $1,495,000. Woo, Brianna's buying an expensive place. 1 million, let's see, we're gonna do 1,500,000. Easy number. That is in C. You type in the purchase price and then it automatically spells it out for you. D, close of escrow shall occur on. You can put an X there and then you can pick a date for escrow to close. I don't really recommend that. And the reason why.
Don't do that.
he says don't do that. Most of the time that somebody does that, I have it fall on a weekend because they didn't check the calendar.
Yep.
It is much better to just put in 30 days. I know a lot of people are trying to close sooner than 30 days, but to be honest, right now, even if it says 21 days, most of the escrows are ending up closing 30 days. Okay. This is number 2, talks about agency. It says that the parties acknowledge receipt of that very first page, the agency. And then B is confirmation of agency relationships. This has to be filled out. You have to have the seller's brokerage firm, the brokerage's license number, the seller's agent and their license number. The boxes need to be checked. Your brokerage, your name, your license, broker's license, these boxes have to be checked. If this is not filled out, we have to do another form that is just basically the agency confirmation. So make sure that this is all filled out. If you use the MLS Connect, it's going to fill the information out for you. Okay. Potentially competing buyers and sellers. Parties each acknowledge receipt of the possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. Okay. I always call page 1 the money page, because this is the page where we deal with all the money issues. Okay, it's also the first page usually of your escrow instructions. Okay, what were we? 1,500,000. So we're gonna do, let's see, they're gonna put $550,000 down. I'm gonna figure out. That would be 45,000 earnest money deposit. I'm just going to go with 3%. Okay. 1,500,000. Did I say 550,000? Nick, you're good at math.
What was that? I was
I said,
sorry.
you're good at math. So the loan is gonna be $950,000. And 505 is the balance of down payment. Okay. So initial deposit. This is what we're depositing into escrow. It's what basically is, it's a deposit to say that we're moving forward. It's what ties the buyer actually to this transaction. The seller's taking their home off the market and the buyer is putting that money, that initial deposit, into escrow to hold it. Okay. The purchase contract defaults to them wiring in this money. So my clients, once escrow opens, they get the wiring instructions. They're going to send in $45,000. That money just sits in escrow for the 30 days. The escrow doesn't do anything with it. They don't give it to the seller. They hold that money in their escrow trust account. You could also have your buyers bring in a cashier's check, a personal check, or other within 3 business days. So contractually, this money has to be in escrow within 3 business days. These are the only days in the contract that are actually business days. Every other day is calendar days. If your buyer is going to do a cashier's check or a personal check, please don't take it for them. Have them deliver it to escrow. You don't want to hold on to that. And if you do hold on to it, you need to fill out the trust book. There's one at the Lakewood office, the Seal Beach office, and the Eximino office. And you have to write down what the check amount is and where it's going to and when you've distributed it. Okay. This would be if the buyer deposits with agent has been given a deposit or personal check. Don't do that. So 3A, initial deposit, 45,000. Increased deposit. Okay. This is if they're going to bring more money in to escrow in the middle or 10 days later. It's not the balance of the down payment. It's a second deposit into escrow. A lot of times this is done if the buyer needs to move money around. So they may have a very small initial deposit and 10 days later, they're going to deposit in $20,000 more. This is not used that much, but it does happen sometimes. All cash offer is 3C. They're coming in with all cash, then you check that box and it'll kind of gray out everything else. It won't let you type anything else in the loan section, but we're not going to do it. Loan, first loan in the amount of $950,000. This loan will be conventional financing. That's the default. If my clients were going to go FHA or VA, I have to check these boxes. There are certain, I don't know, qualifications or things that a seller and a buyer have to do for FHA and VA loans, and the seller needs to know that's the kind of financing and that's the kind of issues they're going to deal with in escrow. If you check one of these, it's going to add the FHA or VA a mandatory clause, which you have to turn in with this purchase contract. But we're going to do conventional loan. You could also check assumed financing, but I rarely ever deal with that. This loan shall be at a fixed rate not to exceed. The majority of the people that I see purchase contracts from, they don't fill this out. You should fill this out. You should be in contact with your buyer's lender. You should know what loan percentage, that's available that day and what they can't go higher than. And the reason we want you to fill this out is because if your client can't or won't do a loan above, I don't know, it's like 2.7 right now, I think, 3.5, but you don't put that on this form, if they get a loan, they're approved for a loan of 4%, your buyer can't back out because they don't like that percentage rate. Unless you fill this out, if they get approved for a loan, whether it's a percentage rate they do or don't like, they're stuck.
So basically, you guys, you're creating an additional contingency to protect them on the interest rate. Okay, that's basically it. And just like Nikki said, I don't even think I would suggest that I would make it mandatory, like put an interest rate in there that protects your client. Sometimes we do pad it a little bit. So like, let's say rates right now are at like 2.5 or 2.75 or whatever it is, ridiculously good rates right now. Sometimes we'll put in like 3% there or whatnot, but that's where Nikki's saying you should be in cahoots with the lender to understand what interest rate are they expected to get. So if you are going to pad it a little bit to be competitive or whatnot, what does that rate look like padded? And is it even possible for that buyer, right? So those are questions you should have with the lender.
I have a question, Nikki.
Yes.
So you put the rate in, like, let's use a 3%, because now it's 2.75. So let's say you put 3. You can still, let's say they get a rate at 3.2, we can still move forward. That's just for protection if we didn't want
Yes.
to, correct? Just double
Yes.
checking that. That's kind of how I explain it to my clients as well. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Second loan. Once again, I don't see a lot of these, but sometimes buyers do need to get 2 loans. There's the first loan and the secondary loan. And once again, you put in interest rate percent, and then you'd put in how much that loan is going to be. Additional financing terms. This is where you should be putting if you want the seller to pay for closing costs. Now, closing costs are escrow fees, lender fees. What else could be in there, Nick? Are you there?
No, I think you hit it spot on. I think it's going to be what you said. You know, what I like to see is basically, just to make it clear, like financial terms there. That's my biggest thing. Sometimes people try to write furniture in under there, and I'm like, whoa, that's like on the next page or maybe 2 pages from now, actually. So I'm like, no, don't put it there. Make it financially based if you're going to add any additional terms.
And this is the way it's always supposed to be written. Anytime you get a credit from the buyer, it is a seller to pay whatever amount for reoccurring and non-recurring closing costs. Okay. I see this sometimes in other spots, but remember, this is the money page. Put the money issues on the money page. Okay. Balance of down payment. This is the cash that my buyer is going to bring in right before escrow closes. The lender is going to send in their money, and then my buyer sends in their money. And the total purchase price is $1,500,000. Okay. Just about every single page in the purchase contract, the buyers and sellers initial the bottom of the page. Okay. H, verification of down payment and closing costs. Contract says that the buyer has to provide their verification that, in this case, my buyer has somewhat more than $550,000 in cash, and their pre-approval or pre-qualification letter. If you have it right away, check verification or attached, or you have to, in 3 days, provide that to the seller. Okay, a lot of people don't want to do that, but you have to, and it says in the contract that you have to do it. Appraisal contingency removal. If your buyer is getting a loan, there's most of the time going to be an appraisal. Sometimes they're doing table appraisals and they won't come out. But this agreement right now is contingent upon getting an appraisal, a written appraisal of the property by a licensed or certified appraiser at no less than the purchase price. If your property does not appraise, it's another point where you can negotiate. The default here is 17 days. Okay. If I had checked up here on the first page that it was all cash, the buyer can still get an appraisal, but it blocks out the no loan contingency. Your buyer can pay for appraisal whether or not they're paying all cash. A lot of people are shortening the days because there's so many offers on properties, but the default is 17 days.
And don't be afraid,
Okay.
guys, to like ask your lender, like, how fast can we get an appraisal out there? Like, you know, and have those conversations so that you can maybe shorten that to something that you're comfortable with, right? It's one thing to say I can do it in 10 days or 7 days, but it's another thing to have a conversation with the lender and have them say, I'm averaging about 10 days or 11 days right now, and have that confidence that it should get done. So don't just jump the gun on shortening that contingency until you've had a conversation about it.
And also know that the lender can't order the appraisal until all your buyer's paperwork is in. Loan terms, loan applications within 3 days after acceptance. Buyer shall deliver to seller a letter from buyer's lender or loan broker stating that based on a review of buyer's written application and credit report, buyer is pre-qualified or pre-approved. Okay, you should have that when you write the offer. You want to have buyers that are already pre-qualified or pre-approved. Letter attached if you're sending it. Loan contingency. Buyers shall act diligently and in good faith to obtain the designated loan. Buyer's qualification for the loan specified above is a contingency of this agreement unless otherwise agreed to in writing. If there is no appraisal contingency or the appraisal contingency has been waived or removed, then failure of the property to appraise at the purchase price does not entitle the buyer to exercise cancellations due to it not appraising. If buyer is otherwise qualified for the specified loan, buyer's contractual obligations regarding deposit, balance of down payment, and closing costs are not contingencies of this agreement. All right.
So just so
Loan
you know, there was the reason why that's in there too, just to clarify, is because there's bad habits in our industry of agents trying to use the loan contingency as a replacement for the appraisal contingency. And they are two completely different things. Your loan is your loan, your appraisal is your appraisal. So a lot of people will remove the appraisal contingency thinking, well, it directly relates to me getting my loan. No, no, it does not. Appraisal is about value, loan is about the qualifications of the buyer. So just be very clear that you cannot use one contingency for the other, and that's why that paragraph is in there. Okay, go ahead, Nikki.
Perfect way of saying that. Okay, loan contingency removal. It defaults to 21 days. In 21 days, your buyer is supposed to have loan approval. I know that we're in a market that asks for a shortening of these time periods, but 21 days is pretty much about what it takes to get loan approval. I wouldn't shorten this too much because you don't want a listing agent to be hounding you to remove the loan approval when your client is not approved. Okay. If your client is getting a loan, this is where they would check if they were not going to have a loan contingency. I don't recommend that. It ties your buyer into buying the house whether or not they get approved for their loan. They can't back out, and they could be at risk to lose their deposit. Okay. Number 5, lender limits on buyer credits. This is an important one, guys. You need to check with the lender to make sure you know how much credit the buyer can receive. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you have a smaller purchase price and you get a, I don't know, $13,000 credit from the seller, more than likely that's too much. And the buyer doesn't get that cash, it just pays for their closing costs. So if their closing costs aren't $13,000, they're only $10,000, that other $3,000 goes away, just disappears. So just know that there is a limit on how much money your buyer can receive from you, the agent, or from the seller. Okay. Buyer stated financing. Sellers rely on blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I need to take a drink. The seller is relying on the information that you provided here is correct. You can't change this without permission from both sides. So you can't all of a sudden say, oh, you know what, we're not going to put $550,000 down. We're only going to put $250,000 down. You can only do that if you get the seller to sign and agree to those terms. If you wanted to go conventional, but then found out FHA would be a better way to go, you need to have the seller sign and agree to go FHA. That's what this buyer stated financing is. You can't change it, and the seller has no obligation to cooperate with it. You need to ask permission. Okay. Sale of buyer's property. This agreement and buyer's ability to obtain financing are not contingent upon the sale of the property owned by the buyer. That's the default. If it is contingent, if your buyer cannot buy this property without selling their own property, you need to check 4B. This agreement and buyer's ability to obtain financing are contingent upon the sale of the property owned by buyer as specified in the attached COP. Any questions so far?
Hi, it's Tom. I have one.
Okay. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Lou. If the appraisal contingency, if say for instance, my buyer only wants to go a certain amount over, how would you write that in?
You could put that in other terms. Right
Okay.
here on number 6, you could say buyer will, what is the wording for it? Buyer will pay up to $10,000 in cash if property does not appraise.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, addenda and advisories. Okay, defaults right here. It says that buyer's inspection advisory is included because it's at the bottom of this package. If I don't really recommend checking these boxes. You can send the form without checking these boxes. When you check these boxes, you make these forms part of the contract, which makes them, you have to give them to the lender. Okay, and if you have to give them to the lender, they all need to be perfectly done. They all need to be perfectly signed. Lenders are very, and underwriters, I guess I should say, are very critical. So if you check it, then they have to see it, and every initial has to be on it, and every signature has to be on it, and every date has to be on it, and ad infinitum. So if you send a probate advisory, you can still send the probate advisory and get it signed by everybody, but you don't have to send it to the lender. And that's not lender fraud because it's just an advisory. If you do a short sale addendum, they're going to want to see it anyways, but you don't need to check the box. Anything that you check or write in here, the lender wants. I mean, I've literally seen things where somebody put in other TDS. That lender asked to see the transfer disclosure statement. We don't want that lender to ever see a transfer disclosure statement. Okay, other terms. This can be where you would write something like about the appraisal. this could be where you write, if your buyer is making the offer without seeing the property, subject to interior inspection. This could be where you write, what else would you write in here, Nick?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's usually that space gets used as the like one blank space in the contract for like random situations or things. So again, I don't want to give you guys any more thoughts than that. I'll say what you don't want to write in there. What I see a lot of agents do is they include their like commission. So like a lot of agents will sometimes think because in the MLS it says 2% that they're going to write buyer's agent to get 2.5% on there. You cannot do that. You cannot negotiate your commission on a contract between buyer and seller. So do not do that type of thing. Okay. That's just one thing I wanted to add.
I have a question, Nikki. Sorry. Let's say somebody wants to, let's say you call the agent and you're asking, you're doing your due diligence and you're asking them what the seller wants, like we've been trying to say, like, what are they looking for in the contract? And they say, I'm looking for a 30-day contingency, a seller replacement property or something like that. That's where that would also go. Is that correct?
Yes, you can also put that in.
Could you tell me what the wording for that would look like? So I know, I'm going to write it down. Thank you.
Seller to rent back property for up to 30 days and to pay buyer PITI.
But wouldn't you put that, Nikki, in item 9 and then just drop an SPRP instead and incorporate it under item 9? Because like that's why I wouldn't suggest that there, because I would just put it under item 9.
Okay, so here's the thing, and I'm not going to disagree with you there, Nick, but a lot of times people will put it here because they aren't sure what the time period is going to be. I'm not a huge fan of doing the SIP or the RLAS until later in the escrow, and for sure the dates and times.
That's fair.
That's putting it here, like we're going to just say up to 30 or up to 60, and we're agreeing on it, but we're not going to confirm the terms of that agreement until later.
Cool. Okay.
That's why I would use it number 6.
Nikki and Nick too, would you send as the buyer's agent the SPRP to them then, if you are the person that wants certain things on that, if that makes sense?
The SPRP would be the seller purchase of replacement property. So absolutely, you would send that with the counteroffer. But the seller in possession form or the residential lease after sale, I would highly recommend doing that after you all figure out when things are going to actually close.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, but you can't agree to it in number 6. Okay, anybody have any questions over everything we've covered so far? Page 1 is the money page. Page 2 is the important page because it deals with the time, the dates for appraisal and loan. And then number 7 is where we get to what everybody is going to pay for. So it's 11:53. Do we want to finish this page and then stop? Or do we want to stop here?
Do you think we can get through 7 or no?
Yeah, 7 all the way to here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so allocation of costs. Unless otherwise agreed to in writing, this paragraph only determines who is to pay for the inspections, tests, certificate of service. It does not determine who is to pay for any work recommended or identified in the reports. So number 1, 7A1, buyer or seller shall pay for a natural hazard zone disclosure report, including tax. Coldwell Banker wants environmental, tax and environmental. Seller's choice of services is what I always put here. On a blank one, it's just going to ask you to pick one of these. I think the seller should choose since the seller is ordering it and the seller is paying for it. But you can always put in your preferred company. Note any of these drop downs that say a company, those are there not necessarily because they're the absolute best, but they're there because they pay money. My NHD pays money to be the first one on this drop down. Snap NHD pays money. Disclosure Source pays money. Okay. Number 2, buyer or seller shall pay for the following report. If you want a termite report, put it here. Know that if you put termite report there, the lender's going to want a copy. If you put termite report in clearance here, it means that the lender is going to, it will not close escrow and fund the loan until they have a clearance. So you will have to remove termite from the contract if you guys find out that it's not going to happen before close of escrow. You put the termite report here, then it just means that you want a termite report. Okay.
Nikki, is it phrase termite or is it wood burrowing something something?
It's actually, good question, because it is actually wood destroying pest report, because it's not just about termites. So really you should put wood destroying pest report. Okay. I am seeing a lot lately, buyer to pay for a property inspection. Don't do that. You never need to write in a contract what kind of inspection your buyer is going to get. Your buyer has 17 days to do whatever kind of inspection they want to do, and they don't need to put it in the contract. Because once again, we don't want the lender to say, it's in the contract, I need a copy of it. You don't want to ever give a lender a copy of the buyer inspection report. And you can do a buyer inspection regardless of whether it's in number 3. Any questions on that? And these are the standard things that I see on almost all the contracts that are written well. Okay, B, government requirements and retrofit. Sellers shall pay for smoke alarm and carbon monoxide detector installation and water heater bracing. This is the law. It has to be done prior to close of escrow.
Hey, Nikki, I have a quick question.
Okay.
When you were talking just about the lender, we don't want to give them all that information. Just real quick, is it the only thing that we really do give them? I mean, as far as our paperwork goes from this kind of stuff, is this RPA, right? So we give them this, and then that's really it, right? We don't, I mean, obviously not inspection, obviously not, I mean, appraisal they do. Isn't that right? Or I'm just trying to simplify it in my mind.
The only other things you would give after the purchase contract and counter offers would possibly be if you had did an addendum regarding changing of the purchase contract price.
Got it.
Or adding closing costs.
Okay, perfect. All right, if there's an addendum of some sort. Okay, cool. Thanks, Nikki.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, number 2, buyer and seller shall pay the cost of compliance of any other minimum mandatory government inspections and reports if required as a condition of closing escrow under any law. Okay, so this is right here, basically city inspections. So if 4300 Broadway, I'm pretty sure this is in the garage impacted area, and I'd want the seller to pay for the garage inspection. If this was in LA, all of Los Angeles, some of the Valley, there is a 9A report that is required to close escrow. You want the seller to pay for that. 2II, sellers shall pay the cost of compliance with any minimum mandatory government retrofit standards as required as a condition of closing under escrow under any law. Okay, Long Beach does not right now have retrofit standards. There are cities that do. LA does. And basically for LA, it's water certification. You have to have somebody come in and certify that there are low flow toilets in those properties. It is a state law that all properties that are sold are supposed to have low flow water fixtures, but it is not a close of escrow requirement, except for in LA and a few other cities. So if there's a retrofit requirement in the city, you need to check that the seller pays for it.
So Nikki, real quick, in Long Beach, so you can leave them blank then, because it doesn't apply to us, is that right?
2II doesn't apply. There's no retrofit standards in Long Beach or Lakewood. 2I, check and see if it's in the parking impacted area. And if you check something on a contract and it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply. Not like they have to do it, even though it's checked.
Nikki, if you go into another city that you don't know anything about, where would you go to find out if there's any requirement for these low flow or anything else?
So you can, you know, I say this a lot. Let me move this. Google is always one of your best friends. And the title companies, almost every title company has a list that cities that require pre-sale inspections. Title Advantage is the first one that comes up. And if I click on that, like pre-sale requirements, Azusa, Bell, Belvedere, Beverly Hills, Burbank, Carpinteria, Compton. Compton actually has somebody from the city that comes out to inspect your property. El Segundo, Hawaiian Gardens, Hermosa Beach, Huntington Park, Inglewood, Lawndale. That's why I say most of LA. Long Beach, Garage Inspection Report. Laguna Beach, a Real Property Report. Los Angeles City is the 9A report. So there you go. If you type in cities that require pre-sale inspections, you'll come up with all of these. Or if you use a TC, they're gonna tell you as well.
Thank you.
So then, Nikki, do we arrange to have those inspectors come out, or do the buyers?
You represent the seller.
Oh, only if you represent the seller.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what that means is they can't close escrow without those.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Escrow and title. Buyer and seller each pay their own escrow fees. That's pretty much the across the board norm. But seller usually gets to choose their services. If you notice, I write out seller's choice of services. Reason is there's a seller's choice NHD company, there's a seller's choice escrow company, and there's a seller's choice title company. So we don't want them to use those companies necessarily. We just want them to have their choice. Okay, seller always pays the title insurance. So C1, buyer and seller each to pay their own, seller's choice of services. C2, sellers shall pay for owner's title insurance policy and seller's choice of services. So they get to pick escrow and they get to pick title. Okay, other costs. Long Beach and Lakewood, county transfer fee. Seller pays for that. Orange County, there's a city transfer tax fee. LA, some cities in LA, there's a transfer tax fee. Again, the city transfer tax fee does change, and almost all the title reps I know, they have a sheet that'll show you. It's like $1.10 for each $1,000. So in some cities, it can be the seller is paying like $450 to $550 in county transfer and city transfer taxes. But for Long Beach and Lakewood, it's only county transfer tax. If you're buying a condo, D3, seller pays for homeowners association transfer fee. Seller shall pay for HOA fees preparing documents required by the civil code. You also want them to pay for documents that aren't required by the civil code. Okay. Private transfer tax fee. Sometimes you know it, sometimes you don't. If it's a PUD or anything with an HOA, I will check that and I'll just write if applicable. Okay, that would be if you have an HOA. I'm going to switch right now. If you represent the seller, make sure you check right here. I've noticed lately people sneaking in termite clearance in number 8 and 9. Don't put termite clearance in your contract. Put it in your request for repairs. Okay. All right. D10 is the home warranty. Commonplace, seller pays for it. This is where you've kind of got to look at what amenities the property has and what your buyer is asking for. I pretty much default for $650 on properties that are like $600 and below. I always want you to put upgraded right here. Click upgraded. I want your buyers to choose, so put buyer's choice. If you know by looking at the MLS, if it has air conditioning, click air conditioning. If you know that the property has a pool or spa, click pool or spa. But absolutely click other. And I want you to do this on every purchase contract you write and put buyer's choice of options and buyer agent to order. If you don't have it written in here that your buyer wants roof coverage or slab leak protection or washer dryer refrigerator, if it's not written here, you don't get it. But by writing in this buyer's choice of options and buyer agent to order, that circumvents escrow saying, no, you didn't ask for it, you don't get it. What this sentence says is that you can order anything for your buyer and the seller will pay for up to $650. If there's a pool, add $100 to that. If there's more than one refrigerator, like if there's a wine cooler, add another $100 to that. $650 should cover if they want washer, dryer, refrigerator coverage. It's a little less on condos, but that should be it. Okay, and then down here at the bottom of number 7, buyer waives the purchase of the home warranty plan. If they don't want the home warranty, you can click there. Right. Just remember, your E&O insurance requires car forms, a home warranty, and a property inspection. If you don't have one of those, your deductible is higher. Okay.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Can you repeat that, Nikki?
If E&O requires a home warranty, a property inspection, and a home warranty, property inspection, and car forms to be used. You still have E&O insurance if your buyer doesn't choose to do those things, but your deductible is just higher. The deductible that you would pay if something was to happen. But because we have such awesome training here, you're not going to get in trouble.
Nikki, what if the buyer decides to buy their own home warranty as kind of to help them get the offer in?
Absolutely,
That's
the buyer
fine.
can pay for it.
And it would
And
go
I
on.
am,
Perfect. Thank you.
and I'm seeing that a lot lately because people are trying to make a better offer. So the buyers are like, I'm going to buy my own.
But that would be covered with the E&O as well, right? As long, it doesn't matter who pays for it, as long
Yeah.
as they have it. Okay, cool. Thanks.
And you could even pay for it.
Perfect.
You could just get a non-upgraded basic policy for $350.
So Nikki, because I've had that before where my buyer has purchased theirs separately because it was so competitive. Do we write that in there as if the seller were doing it, or do we just hit buyer and then write it all in?
You would just hit buyer and write it all
Oh
in.
shoot. Okay, because I've done it before and I didn't hit buyer or seller and the buyer got it.
Yes. So that is most escrows go off of what the boxes are checked. But if something like this was written in, an escrow got an invoice, they should ask everybody who's paying for it, but sometimes they just pick. Not all of them. All the good escrows will send an email out and be like, hey, I got an invoice for home warranty, but nothing's checked in the contract. Who's going to pay for it?
Okay. What if you hit buyer waives the purchase and then the buyer does it on their own? Is that even something to consider or not at all?
I wouldn't consider that because E&O is going to go off of this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. And I just so you know, I just got a offer the other day where the buyer was going to pay the county transfer tax. So that can be paid by either or. It's just normal for the seller to pay for those items. Okay. That is where we're going to stop for today. Any other questions? I'm serious. You can ask me anything.
Okay, I'll ask anything. This is Tom. Hi.
Tom.
What if you want to put in an escalation clause just to kind of entice your offer a little bit? Would that come in later, like on a counter proposal, or what do you think?
You can put it in other terms.
And how would you word that? Just
buyer will pay up to $5,000 over highest offer seller receives.
Now, what if that is outside the realms of the buyer's ability to pay? Then you would just add up to a certain amount?
Yeah.
Okay. And then like how, legally speaking though, like how would they even have, do they have to show proof, the seller, like what that latest offer was? Or
technically they should, yes.
Okay. And then what if other people put in this escalation clause? How does that counteract each other?
Then I guess you go until somebody backs out.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Did everybody understand that about the escalation clause?
No.
And Nikki, I've put in 2 before, like Tom was just asking. I think that Chris has mentioned to me to put in to pay up to $5,000 on highest bid, something like verify the offer. I can't think of it, but verified offer. 5,000 up to the highest verifiable offer.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is good. Put it in the verifiable
And
part.
that means that you can then, they will have to show it to you, so they can't just say what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So Kobe, what escalation clause is you're saying we offered this purchase price, But if you get offers higher than mine, I will pay $1,000 more than that offer, or $5,000 more than that offer.
Okay, I have a question, but wouldn't I representing let's say I'm representing my seller, but wouldn't I take my multiple offers and like throw it out for best and final offer?
And you could still do that representing the seller, and the escalation clause would also still apply. They would just up their offer. So we would say, okay, on this one, what did I say? I said 1,500,000. We'll pay 1,550,000, but I'll still pay 5,000 above any other offer that you get in the counteroffer process. But it can be a slippery slope. You got to make sure your client can get approved for that amount. and you got to make sure that the property is going to appraise. Right now, we're in such a low inventory and so many offers being made. I'm seeing they're not all appraising. So just know the market that you're, the neighborhood, kind of know your comps. Because I don't know, where is this? This is on Broadway. You know, you don't want to get up to $210,000 on a home that's not going to appraise or is not worth 210. That just doesn't behave you.
Nikki, can't you also, as a seller's agent, as a listing agent, can you also just say, my seller doesn't want to take any escalation clauses? Can you just say that too?
Yes, absolutely. Your seller can say, I don't want to look at anything under $1 million. I don't want to take any escalation clauses. I don't want to see any offer where they're asking for a wood destroying pest report. As long as your seller says it, preferably you get it in writing, you don't have to bring every offer you get to that seller.
And Nikki, say your escalation clause got accepted, say it was 500,000 and you said I'd go 50,000 over. Do you have to fill out an addendum to change that price now, or how do you make that? How do you do that now? Say I've never had an escalation clause be accepted, so
you could do it in an addendum, or you would just do another counter offer.
Got it. Okay, cool.
I have another question, Nikki.
Sure.
So let's say,
I love questions.
Let's say, asking for a friend. Let's say you write 30 days escrow. Don't do what I did. Don't say you ask for 30-day escrow, and then you accidentally realize you write a 30-day contingency for the replacement property for somebody. How can I change the escrow? Can I do that with just an addendum and say, duh, I can't do 30 on 30. I got to have 35 or something. What would I do? Does that make sense?
On the contingency, the COP form, did you click that the timelines are supposed to coincide or that they start after?
Well,
okay,
we haven't.
So here,
I'm talking.
This is above a lot of people's. Are you talking about seller's purchase of replacement property?
I'm talking about on the SPRP, I think it is. It's on the SPRP. We can, if that's another day, that's fine. I was just curious how to change.
That is another day.
Okay, no worries.
But just know both of those forms, the seller's purchase of replacement property contingency and contingency for the sale of the buyer's property.
Okay.
You can always check the timeline is to start after 2 days after buyer entering into contract for the sale. So, or with sellers, the timeline starts after the seller identifies the replacement property.
Okay.
So instead of them being coincide, once the timeline for this purchase starts after the seller's identified or after the buyer's property's been sold.
Okay, so there's no way to add on. Do you want? Can I call you after? So I don't want to take everybody's time up. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll just do that. Sorry. Thank you so much.
But you can always do an addendum.
So I can add
always
on time to escrow.
Addendum.
I can just say, okay, we're going to do 5 extra days. That's what I was asking. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes. Everything is negotiable. just because you've written the contract and it's in escrow, it does not mean that you can't negotiate any of the terms.
Yeah,
in
it was
the
just a
contract.
mistake. So thank you. Thank God for that.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, most people out there, the biggest goal is to get the close of escrow. If you are open and honest and give constant updates, most people are willing to move with you.
Thank you.
We all make mistakes. That's happened many a time in many a deal that I've been on. And as long as you just talk to the other agent and do an addendum and everybody agrees, you're fine. Okay. Can I save this form as a sample to send you? Yes. I think, okay, yeah, that's all the questions. Okay. Well, I look forward to our next class. And just please know, this is a confusing form, this purchase contract. If you feel like lost or anything, you're not the first person. Every time I used to ask my mom, I have a question about the contract, I don't understand. She would say, did you read it? And I'd say, no. And then she'd say, go read it. And I'd come back and I'd say, I have a question. And she'd say, did you read it? And then finally, when I was able to come back and say, okay, on number 8, whatever, this is what it says, and I'm a little confused about it, then she'd go, okay, now I'll give you the answer. So read this. The only reason I can explain this the way I can explain it is because I've read this contract. I know it's not fun and I didn't want to do it, but I finally did it.
Niki,
Okay, yeah.
how essential is that cover page? I was never told that before.
I like it because if you put it in here, the information auto-populates. And if you put the email addresses in here, when you go to e-sign, you don't have to put the email addresses in.
But the cover sheet never goes, yeah, that's that, right? Okay.
Yeah, the cover sheet never goes anywhere else. It's
Okay.
just it's just an easy way to harness all the information and to get it to auto-populate on all your forms.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you
You're
so much,
welcome.
Nikki. This is so helpful. Even like, I think that I learn something new every time and understand it differently and better. So thank you so much for being so thorough.
Oh, you're welcome. And just know too, I'm a certified trainer. I had to take hours and hours of classes to know this contract as well. Like, no joke, a lot of classes. So I will see you all next time and have a great day.
Thank you very much,
you.
Nikki. That was
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Bravo.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Bye.
Nikki,
Oh, what? Yeah.
do we
Hello?
have the next date of when you're going to do the next one already?
I think it's next week, honestly.
Okay, because I just want to put on the calendar. You don't know if we have the date, the actual, or do you know?
I don't know. Nick knows.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, babe.
Okay, bye. So long, 11 hours. Oh no, I always. Usually. I have one later today. I shouldn't. I don't think so. I thought it was the 4th. It says no. It's the 4th. Today's the 4th. It's a lot. I know. See how badass I am. I just did that all without. I'm just kidding. No, it's not. And no joke, my mom would just be like, "Did you read it yet?"
Keep reading.
Like she would not answer my questions until I could come back and be. It is, and so